Look, come January 20th, Trump's not out of the White House, so we're coming to burn the mother down.
All right, greetings, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Heroes Peak podcast, where we talk culture, pop culture, entertainment, and everything else we feel like talking about. I am your host, Chris, as always. With me, I have a few wonderful co-hosts here to do an end of 2020 culture review, part one. Next week, we are planning to do the entertainment portion of this two-part end-of-year spectacular. With me first, Mr. Orange himself, James. How you doing, it, James?
What up, yo? Ladies and gents, let's go orange.
It's not nice to wear a Trump shirt, you understand? He lost.
This was the original
over.
orange, man. Not the remix.
Not the remix. And next, we have our West Coast Karen. How you doing, Brooks?
Pew pew! Get off my lawn!
Ouch.
Wow. That was amazing. I really wish James would have spit his drink out.
Sorry, I thought of that like 12 hours ago, and I said I have to say it.
No, that was pretty good. And I changed my name to West Coast Shorty, so it was very fitting. Perfect. I have to find a new greeting because I can't say Happy Monday anymore, so I'll be working on that, and it will not be West Coast Karen. I promise.
You would need to redo your hair anyway, and you don't need
True.
Right. And then over here, still mattering, it's Keith. How you doing?
Booyaka.
And then last, we have from the War of Northern Aggression. That's the Canadian version. It's Mike. How you doing, Mike?
Look, come January 20th, Trump's not out of the White House, so we're coming to burn the mother down.
Oh.
Wait, what year did they do that? Didn't Canada?
1812. No, not 1812. That was the British.
No, there was a war in 1812 that the British did it.
All right.
They blame us for it.
That's right. They're like, they came from Canada. It had to have been the Canadians.
I don't know. They landed there and they walked their way around and came down.
Yeah, they were in horses. They were in Mounties.
Walk down.
They also had Biden votes, and they just left them over here. I don't know what that is. All right.
They marched with Hugo Chavez.
So the way this is going to work is I took kind of an inspiration from Time Magazine's Person of the Year, and I did my own thinking, and I kind of split it down into more events of the year, and I came up with 3 major events, and we're going to split that across 5 kind of topics here. And the number one topic of the year is not Joe Biden. I don't know who in the world sat down and went, that's the year in review.
It was an old white person, obviously.
Definitely.
Thought that.
So yeah, because they had 3 options of three old white guys as Biden, Trump, or Fauci, right? Not Fauci. Yeah, Fauci.
Fauci.
Fauci's the jazz hands guy. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay.
So anyway, the 3 topics of the year are, number 1, the pandemic. And the pandemic, we're breaking down into 3 topics: the pandemic in general, the vaccine, and the entertainment industry reaction to the pandemic, because, well, we're an entertainment podcast too. So that's where we're going to talk about that. And then the election in general, because the election, Donald Trump, Joe Biden, everything in between, because that was also the biggest news story of the year. And lastly, Jane. Wow, I just broke my brain.
Lastly, is the Black Lives Movement.
Brooks, that's right, because this topic moved around person to person. That's why it broke my brain. I even wrote it down, and I failed to actually read it. So Brooks is going to be handling the Black Lives Matter and the racial justice movement from this year as the 3rd major topic, and I'm being laughed at right now. Or are they
laughing at Keith laughing at you?
Or is he laughing?
Why is he fumbling? Like, you're fumbling. What's going on?
He almost sounds ashamed to
I-
say.
You almost sound ashamed.
The white lady.
know,
Black
I
Lives
really-
Matter
all
makes
about the
white
black
people nervous, you guys.
Yes.
I see. I see that.
I looked
see
down
that.
at my notes and I failed to read the first line, which says Brooks BLM right there, and I lost it. I couldn't find it, and I'm like, what is the topic?
Brooks Lives Matter.
Tom Brady having a bad game, y'all.
What happens when you
That's
make
right.
the
I
white
can
male
throw-
patriarchy nervous?
I can throw a couple of picks now and then. So, I think we'll just start with the
Pandemic.
yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay, editor, cut, slice. That's how this is gonna work. I'm starting over.
Editing. We don't edit anything.
Edit. What's going on?
All right.
Mike is
So-
like, that's too much time tonight.
We are going to talk about the pandemic, and I'm going to start that discussion off just so I can fuck it up some more. Because I went online and I read a couple of articles, I listened to a couple of videos and whatever to get a basis for us to jump off of. And interesting stuff, of course. This is the biggest story of the year. So a few things I didn't know about the pandemic because of, we heard this and that, but number one was that it is related to the SARS and MERS that had appeared in 2004 and 2009, I believe, in the 2 years, because they're all viruses that attack your lungs and your breathing and your capabilities. Also, the name coronavirus is based on the visual of the actual virus under the microscope. It has like little prongs. So corona supposedly means like crown. So it's basically the crown
Yeah.
virus. So I thought that was
Too bad for the Corona Beer Company, but yeah.
right. So just a little quick timeline of what went down. And that was basically in December of 2019 in Wuhan, China. The first case of this virus appeared. Now, according to this Johns Hopkins website, there is no definitive evidence that it came from a live animal market. So we can't say, I'm not going to say whether it did or didn't, even though that's what we hear all the time about monkeys and crap.
Randy Marsh knows different.
I'm sure.
Mm,
I'm sure
ooh.
right-wing media knows exactly where it came from.
Integrity.
Integrity and a certain mouse.
Mhm.
That's right. So in January, the first case appeared here, January 19th in Seattle. And for the next several months, our wonderful executive branch of the government decided it was not a big deal. Even though they knew differently, which we learned later through that Bob Woodward interview, that at the end of January, Trump actually knew and was told it was a big deal and decided it wasn't. I think the big thing that happened was I remember sitting here and watching the news about how Europe was suddenly racked with this virus, and we had like 1 or 2 or 8 cases in the US, and and we were being told it's not a big deal, it's not going to be that, it's going to be this. But then in late March, the stock market basically decided to bottom out, and guess what got a hold of the president's attention? The basic crashing of the stock market back to 1920s era level stock market crash, followed closely by massive unemployment. We got up to 22% in April, up to 22% unemployment in April. Now, currently, we're at about 6.4%, according to the sites I saw. I don't know how up to date everything is.
Is it really down to 6% again?
6.4%. Now,
Okay.
that's still high.
Yeah.
Our low is about 3.3%. 5% considered.
Yeah, but the average is about 4 to 6%. So
Right.
it's really not that bad. considered.
No, but what we've basically seen is a lot of people had the ability to move home and do distance work.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened was certain industries basically took the brunt of people going home because not everything could shut down. Supermarkets stayed open, some stores stayed open, big box stores stayed open, anything with food, hospitals, those kind of things. But the brunt of it got taken by the hospitality industry, basically. Travel industry got screwed. And our government all have managed to give us $1,600 once, way back in spring.
Some of us.
Not everybody, sorry. And drop an extra couple $100 for the unemployed, which helped. Those of us who got sent home for a couple of months, that was a big help to get that extra cash. But then it all basically stopped because, as we'll get into, the election and politics, the politicking of a pandemic created the current world in which we're living, instead of all coming together and having a leader to do that. I think the big number here is really about the coronavirus deaths. The peak April, we had 2,700 deaths recorded in a single day. The peak in June, that was 2,700. June, we had a peak of 2,466 deaths in a single day, and then we're in the middle of our third wave. December, we had a peak of 3,157, which put it as the third most deadliest day in American history, putting us just over 9/11. Wonderful. We're currently at 16 million cases in the U.S., 302,000 deaths. And this is horrible, horrible stuff to talk about. But I think where we want to go with this discussion is how it affected the economics and the daily life of the country. Because that's really, we could talk about how horrible it is to have people die, long-term illnesses and stuff. But as a podcast, I think we're going to talk mostly about the economics of this pandemic. And we'll start that off, and I'm going to actually ship it over to James, because the good news is right now we're starting to see the vaccine in the vaccine response. I'm
Correct.
really off today, guys, so I'm just going to send it over to James. Go ahead.
It's all right. It's all right. I'll dig into the actual vaccine, which was my chosen topic, but staying on brand on the pandemic as a whole, I think it was something that most of us experience. And, some of us have families and kids, some of us are single, some of us are another part of the country, realizing that any particular disease or a health issue can cause the entire world to stop, frozen in time. Your work, your entertainment livelihood, your ability to go to the gym, your ability just to hang out with people in general, going to bars, all that stuff that we took for granted and socializing, all of a sudden you were forced to isolate. In February, March, most of the major, at least metropolis cities, maybe not so much in the Midwest, were shut down. And all of us, with the exception of Mike, Mike too, Toronto, it's a large city. We're all involved in these places where all of a sudden we're forced to isolate. We can't go out. We got to be careful going to the store for food. We might get COVID. We might get corona.
Honestly, I think we started doing that before you guys.
I think you did. I think America was late to the game.
We were taking it more seriously up here.
Yeah, New York got hit as the first major hub of U.S. virus. New York got hit, and basically,
in fact, Ground Zero was not White Plains, but a little town right above the city. Right. So I think just to talk about the pandemic and how it impacted us, I think it was huge, at least for me, an awakening, realizing how vulnerable and weak we are as the human condition. We rely on social interaction. Yeah, with technology has got us to the point where we can have a podcast across countries and states and be able to have, Zoom meetings and Microsoft Teams meetings and interact and video games with someone in Japan. But that doesn't fulfill the entire human experience. There's still a moment where you want to physically hug your parents. go to the park, do something that that technology just can't answer. And we all realize that within the first month or so, you're hearing about clinical depression, and you're hearing about, in the suburbs, people were just going to a liquor store and just getting shit faced because they had nothing to do.
Mhm.
Is before the job market and all that stuff was suffering. It was just the need to people to interact with others was felt heavy those first 2 months. And in some cases, it forced certain areas to just forget about the social quarantines and just do whatever they damn well please, which then resulted in the spikes that left the New York and congested areas to the rest of America and other parts of that. So I think for me, the biggest impact of the pandemic was definitely in the beginning, when we realized how vulnerable we were as a society, as a human society, where we're so dependent, despite technology, on our basic human social interactions, physical contact interactions. That's the biggest thing I'm taking away from this pandemic. Even when we get back to the vaccines, that first time you go into a ball game at Madison Square Garden or Staples Center or Toronto, you're gonna be like, wow, like I miss this. I miss slapping the beer of this dude or booing this person, or going to to see Avengers 5, and when you're in that crowd, everybody's going crazy. These are moments that when it finally hits us, it's gonna be huge because of what we went through in 2020 and having to deal with the pandemic and minimizing our social interactions with others. It's huge for me.
Yeah, how did the when you first got the stay-at-home order, what, like, out in the West Coast, what was it like? Did people adhere to it? Was there like a lot of people saying no, I don't think so? Brooks, how did it work over there on the
I was in New
California side?
York. I was still in New York.
Oh,
I was
you were still in New
living. Yeah, I was still living in New York. I had no
In the
thought
Heights.
of in Washington Heights. People were not complying at all. Where I was living in Washington Heights, there were no mask wearing. People were not staying at home. People were just out and about in their normal lives. Definitely. I also it's interesting to think back to March, because I had no thought of moving to back to California, or that just wasn't even a thing on my radar, actually, now that I think back then. I think California, from what I was told, just because a lot of my friends are here and family and work people are here, it seems like people were complying more, but it's a lot easier to comply in other places, because in New York, you are out and about all the time. Like, you're on the subway with people, you know what I mean? Like, all your interactions are around people, whereas in LA, you're in a car, you're not out with other people. You don't have to be among people really to do anything, where that's just not the case in New York. So I think it's just easier to comply anywhere really than New York.
What about you, Keith? Was where you are, did they comply? Did they fight against it? Did they ignore it?
So I've been back and forth between North Jersey and Newark and Queens. And for the most part, I would say even from the beginning, but I think it had something to do with New York being so hard hit in the beginning. People kind of fleed the open areas. It looked a little bit kind of like I Am Legend in the streets, if you ever went out into the streets during the earlier time. But when things started to kind of crack back open a few months later, I feel like people were they were wearing I saw people wearing masks in bunches. I still to this day don't have a problem really navigating outside, feeling insecure because people aren't wearing masks. Because the majority of people are casually wearing masks now. You get your one or two, of course you have your groups of people that may not go along with the crowd, but for the majority of part, I would say it's been pretty, people have been following the rules, pretty much in my experience out here.
Are they taking it better up north, Mike? Are they, does it feel like the leadership makes a difference in how people are handling public
for sure
life?
Our first lockdown was April. Think about that.
Mm-hmm.
and they were showing on the news how like Toronto was basically empty. They told everybody to stay home for 2 weeks, and they were showing on the news like nobody had ever seen Toronto that quiet before. You're talking about the main city. Toronto has like 4 million people. GTA's, we're talking about like 6 million people altogether, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not tiny by any amount. So and then pretty much right after that there was mask mandates, not mandates, but everyone, they would put your damn mask on, wash your hands, keep your distance. Right after that, yeah, all the social distancing rules went into effect for the stores. 2 meters, 6 feet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, most
2 meters.
stores.
Thanks.
It's for the engineers out there. So most of the stores said, hey, you want to come in here, you need to put on a mask. They set up sanitizing stations. They started sanitizing procedures for all the carts and all the the products. And from that time, from March, when we were going grocery shopping, by the time it came through our door, we were wiping down all the groceries. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Sanitizing everything. So
Yeah, I think that's what hits me the most now as compared to just thinking about how we were acting earlier. And this was a learning process about this disease, about this virus, was that at first it was nobody outside, not near, like not interacting, really staying home, except to go to maybe to the grocery store, in which they were wiping down everything and really heavy handed. And then now it's like, okay, you still want to wash your hands, you still want to wear your mask, you still can go to the store, but you can be outside, you can be at a park, you can, okay, that's not the issue. That you don't want to be inside in a restaurant in air conditioning,
right.
but being outside at the park is not the issue. And during the summer there was a lot of iffiness around that. I remember there were people trying to bring their kid to the park after being home, and it was such a weird environment as we tried to learn together as it went along how to live where we really didn't know what was going to happen and how long it was going to be. Especially at first, it was all like, hey, it's going to be 2 weeks. Everybody's going to stay home for 2 weeks and it's all going to be good. And it really failed hard.
Yeah. So, and don't like misunderstand, like up here, we have a lot of idiots up here too. Anti-maskers. COVID is a hoax. It's no worse than the flu. You know what I mean? There's a group in Toronto called something like Hugs. Hugs and not masks or something, and they get together in Toronto. So gather in Toronto without masks or anything and just hug each other. And
Right.
like, guys are morons. What are you doing?
So, James, we're going to go back to you. So what is the
science time? Oh
what
boy.
is the news about the vaccine?
All right. So we talked about, for the most part, our impacts all around the beginning of when this pandemic started. But now it looks like there's somewhat of a light at the end of this tunnel, at least through the end of 2020, going into 2021. And it's in the form of a vaccine. And without really getting to, the science of how a vaccine works, other than knowing that in basic form, it takes either a weakened version or a dead version of a virus and it introduces it to your body in a form that your immune system can kind of like replicate and create the antibodies to attack it, so that when the real form comes in, your body's somewhat prepared. It's like, the Avengers had to go through Ultron and all this other shenanigans in Civil War to prepare for when Thanos came, and although that didn't work out the way it should have, ultimately it worked that way. But the difference with what's happening with this vaccine now, because mind you, it took us 9 months to get to this point of where we have a vaccine that's very efficient, which is unlike of any previous vaccine we've ever had, is because what the science behind it is what is being done with this particular vaccine. It's not taking a weakened form or a dead form of COVID-19. It's actually taking a partial piece. It's called mRNA. That's being injected into your body, so that your body now it imitates the full protein of that virus and allows your own immune system to react and to be able to prepare for when you actually have COVID-19. This is not 100% guaranteed. In fact, there's among the 20 or so different vaccines that's been put on trial, it's only 2 that's been approved worldwide, and in particularly with the FDA, and that's the one by Pfizer and the one by Moderna that was just authorized this week. Actually,
Did you forget the Russia vaccine that came out in 20?
That's part of 20 that I'm not recognizing. Yeah, vodka basically.
That's
Stoli. So
Hey, I'm immune. I had that Russian chocolate.
by the way, we're still waiting for our sponsorship. So with these 2 particular vaccines, you know, they're about 94-95% efficient, but the transporting means are a little bit different. You got to basically go in a cryogen for the Pfizer one, and then an ice cream truck from Moderna. That means ice cream trucks will be rolling by summertime, giving out vaccines to kids. But what I'm realizing now is because we've been authorized to release at least a Pfizer version, is it's actually going through your healthcare provider. Yeah, the CDC and state governments have said the frontline people are critical, and these are who should be getting tested first. I mean, getting the vaccine first. But moving forward, when everything is made to the general populace, it's going to go through your health insurances. And from what I was reading earlier today, as I tried to do a little quick homework, is that, for example, if I have Aetna is going to tell me when that vaccine is ready for my use through CVS, which Aetna owns. So I can get, and it's free. It's not something I have to pay for. In the U.S., and I'm sure Canada has this, and and some, even if you don't have a health insurance, there's a certain amount of money that was released as part of the CARES Act, I think 170 million, that allows people to get at least the first 2 doses of the vaccine for free as well.
Oh, we're not paying for. We're not paying for any vaccine.
I know, that's why I threw Canada in there. From the way these vaccines work, you actually need to take 2 different doses of it. One is like the prep, and then with either 3 or 4 weeks, depending on which kind, is the real second dosage that really ramps it up. The secret, soldier serum. So that leads us into all of the other theories and scams. There's been scams out there, people publishing, hey, I've got the vaccine, I got a copy of it, I stole it from a UPS or FedEx truck, blah, boom, boom.
Buy the vaccine and I'll throw in a free PS5.
Yeah. And because of all this that's happening now, and Chris, you mentioned it before, the politics of this pandemic, now you open a whole whirlwind of, well, I don't feel so safe about this vaccine, this has been too fast. Or, hey, this other version of vaccine I heard is just as good as Pfizer and Moderna. I want to try that. And what kind of superpowers I'm going to get from this vaccine?
Right.
So I think this leads us into a different discussion that we probably should have real quick is, where does that lead, at least the U.S., knowing that the vaccines come in the next quarter, maybe, to everyone by the second quarter of 2021. Are we ready to jump on the vaccine and go out in public and frolic again and go to the movies and go watch the Knicks lose again or do any of that stuff because we got vaccinated? Or are we still going to feel, I'm not so ready. Yeah, I'll get the vaccine, but I'm still going to do my social distancing, have my mask on. Because right now, no one can verify whether the vaccine is permanently going to give you a chance to.
Well, from what I heard, number one, when you get the vaccine, it still takes 2 weeks for you can't just run out to the movie theaters. You have to basically give yourself 2 weeks for it to do its thing.
Yeah, the other thing too, I think Dr. Fauci was mentioning this, is just because you have the vaccine, even though, so he was mentioning I forget the terminology, but if you get the virus after you have the vaccine, I mean, obviously you can it's still in your nose. Like
it reduces the viral count.
Right.
It helps reduce it.
You can still spread it.
Yeah.
So the thing is, it's still important to wear a mask and keep your distance until we've got this whole thing under.
I didn't talk about that because I didn't want to get into the science, but it really does one or two things. It either eliminates the virus in your system, your immune system, or it suppresses the virus where it becomes a common cold.
Right.
You're not getting the full-on effect that will send you to the hospital, ventilator, all that stuff. You're going to feel as if you have a common cold. One or the other. But in either form, you can still transmit it to someone else.
Exactly.
Like the period that you got your vaccine, and then your body's building the antibodies from COVID. You're exposed to COVID. That 2-3 day window as you're fighting it and you're beating it, you can still infect someone else who may
Yeah,
not
so-
have been vaccinated.
It's going to be important that we continue, and somehow we've started the stupidest war that America could start, and that is over the mask mandate, masks or masking mandates, and that's going to be continue to be important past having this. But unfortunately, I think we feel by the numbers, you're going to get 20% of the population that will straight out refuse to take this, and some amount won't get it, won't be able to get it. Some amount they haven't tested pregnant women and
Children under 16.
right, for younger children, so it's still going to be out there. If we could get everybody to work together in some magical land, then we could probably say, hey, wearing my mask, I've got 50% of the population has been vaccinated. I think we're good to kind of open back up and be a normal society, and we can take care of the people who get sick now because, but there's less of a chance. But we'll see. We'll see how fast we can move along. I think it's going to be another year before everything's completely open.
That's what Fauci said.
That's what
Yeah.
Fauci said.
Sounds about right.
All right.
So is
Are-
everybody taking the vaccine?
I'm taking it.
Not me.
I'll probably end up taking it if it's available, but I have a feeling I won't be able to get it till next summer anyway, if
Same
that. It's possible if you work in certain places, they won't let you back without it. Also,
That is
That's
true.
true.
That is very true.
we may see that. I mean, that's not really new. My kids aren't allowed to go to school without a polio vaccine or those kind of things. So
True.
you're basically adding to something. You've already taken 20 or whatever vaccines in your life. You just did them when you were young. So now you're just adding to that.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's my piece for this evening, ladies. and gentlemen.
I understand the questions of how fast it went and where it came from, and is it for all of these different things, especially women of childbearing years and those kind of things. So it's not a perfect system, and I think we've got a couple of months though for
There's also a third manufacturer. I forget the name, but they're hot on the heels of Moderna that was just approved this week to be another manufacturer. What that's going to do is going to increase the not the gene pool. It's going to increase the vaccine pool. Slip of the tongue. there.
Exactly. That is exactly why I'm not taking it.
It's going to increase
It's going to increase what? Say that again.
nothing.
it came from a radioactive spider, so you
Oh,
have to take your chances.
X-Men.
All right. So I think the next part of this we're going to go over to is I'm going to call on Keith to talk about the impact this had on the entertainment industry.
Can we talk about that big bottle of Robitussin that Brooksy's drinking down for this
That's
show?
her vaccine.
Definitely Robitussin.
Vaccine.
Kombucha.
Vaccine.
Dimetap. Not
It looked like
Robitussin.
Robitussin DM.
Dimetap was
Just
cheaper.
Tussin.
Just a
Just
tussin.
Tussin, guys.
It's the old
Just a
1920 style that had Coke
You
in
got
it.
to scrape on your knee, pour the tussin.
Some of us couldn't
Yeah.
afford Robitussin. We had the. That's a podcast for another
Just
time.
Tussin.
The dollar store brand.
That's right.
Mm.
All right, Chris. Sorry.
That's all right. We're sending it over to Keith here.
Entertainment. That's the topic.
Entertainment industry and how we
I
fucked
think
it up.
there were several actual industries that this time period really affected, but especially this year. But zero in on like entertainment, and specifically more so like how entertainment is going to be being delivered to us. I think this year changed the game a lot in a way that I don't think it's gonna 100% go backwards.
Mhm.
Or even like I feel like there's too much of an investment in getting over this hump that they're gonna like that there's even gonna be more marketing towards that end.
Mhm. Yeah,
Um,
it's not like people will stop going out to dinner.
No, of course, but like in the case of movie theaters, like I forced you to get comfortable.
Mhm.
You know, you may afford it in the beginning,
Mm.
but after like 9 months, 10 months, a year and a half, like you're every day goes by, you're more amenable to like falling in line with how things are going now. And once you do it once, twice, three times, like, oh, I can get this new movie right here off of HBO Max, and I can set my kids up with popcorn and shut them up for like a couple hours. Put the, I want to get fancy and put this little thing on and put it on a projector, maybe. You know, like let's have a big family, a nice family experience. All very easy to do, very manageable, a lot cheaper,
Mhm.
a lot cheaper than the same experience taking a family of five to a movie theater. Now we've got a whole new dynamic. Now you've got like the movie theater that has to ask itself questions as to like what's our value and how like how do we now pull people back into this physical space that they don't really need to be, and they've all realized what they realized before, that it's really just a con job. Like you know, like I trap you with overpriced food. You know what I'm saying? Like you walk out of a movie theater, you just spend like $200 on tickets and popcorn for like three kids, and and your wife or husband, and like what did you? It's a cool little memory, but very easily duplicable at home. Now, someplace like an Amazon buys a group of movie theaters and creates these ultra VR experience, like
Mhm.
now you're not just watching a movie of Harry Potter, like you're literally on a broomstick, or you're like like something that I can't get at home, you have to give me in
Mhm.
order to get me there or to justify the prices that you're charging me. Now I feel like this is a very good time for consumers in entertainment, because now you'll have to you want to pull me back to the old way, you're gonna have to justify it.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah. You know what's funny is because the last couple of years, some of the larger theaters like Lowe's, AMC, and Cinemark, I think, were trying to do the 4DX experience. They were trying to do like the mega plexes, but they weren't just making profit because people were just like, nah, it's too much. I'm just gonna go to the standard DX movie theater or bootleg or whatever.
The
Now it's like they gotta pivot that direction.
Exactly. Like I wonder at the research they did behind that. Because to me it's like those things look nice, but like do people actually want it?
Well, I think the best addition any movie theater has made in the last 20 years was recliners. Have you gone to the recliner theaters?
Yeah, I've got to those
Those
AMC a lot.
those are 100 times better than the regular movie theater seats.
Heck
That's
yeah.
it. That's
I'll
the
agree with you.
other
Yeah,
than
but
that,
like,
there have
that
been
could be
no.
very
I haven't really
exciting as
felt
well.
like an advance.
And I don't even know how much percentage of a ticket is compared to the standard ticket,
Oh,
but it's worth it.
Here, it's no different.
Oh, freaking New Jersey, New York capitalists.
I think food was the best, what you call it, for like for real
Oh,
food.
I don't think we have any food
Yo,
theaters.
Alamo Draft House started that stuff when then
Yo,
AMC adopted it.
that's the best.
Food and liquor delivered to you at your chair while you're watching a movie.
Oh, I have not had
Fancy.
that experience.
And
Yeah,
you haven't been to the movies, my friend.
Yeah, I'll go out to dinner and a movie.
but that wasn't
whatever.
everywhere. That was a select few theaters.
No, what I like are I don't know if you have the
What
motion
we're talking
seats.
about right now, we're talking about experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Like and it's now the experiences that's going to create the value. It's not so much like the movie of itself anymore. Because like if I can get the new hot movie that's coming out on on my HBO streaming service or this, that, and the other. Like for you now, I can get a home theater system for like pennies on the dollar now. Like it's not like 20 years ago. I can set myself up with good sound, a nice little even projector if I wanted to, projecting onto a nice white wall. I can set a movie theater environment very, very easily. I just can't see the appeal of the movie theater anymore. Like once you made people realize that. Like you made me realize that. Like I have come face to face with the fact that like I can have a movie theater right here.
Mhm. I'm with you there. I don't like being around people. So
Well,
James, how do you feel about this as a consumer of
I've been
movie
on
theater
a fence on
experience?
this. I've offline we talked about this a lot. I still think you're gonna have the major blockbuster events. They're gonna have to be a cinematic or release. Like I know we talked about Wonder Woman in the last pod. I'm thinking like when you have the major movies, like the people that, because now you're not just going to theater to watch it. You're going to be part of an experience. Like when Black Panther first came out, and you went to a movie theater, whether in Harlem, whatnot, and you sat around like-minded folks and you got to see kids, that was part of the entertainment of watching the movie, the content itself. It was being immersed when all of you were there. Like when we watched Avengers Infinity War and when Thor came out, you could have been in Keith's little dungeon there by yourself, like, oh, that's pretty dope. Or you could have been in a 500 crowd theater and watch people go batshit crazy. Like when you and I went to go see NWA, and they started doing the concert scenes, you and everyone else act like it was a concert. You can't do that at home. And no matter how
It
great your
was a
movie,
concert.
but I think what I'm trying to get at is there's going to be certain movies that maybe I won't say demand, but it's almost like the Super Bowl of movies. Like, okay, that one, I know I've got the right equipment here at home, but I want to experience it with others and get the same reactions. At least a first showing, then you can sit home and watch it, second, three
see,
times,
I'm
whatever.
with you. I'm with you halfway on that. I will go to the blockbusters in the theater, but not for the experience with other people, just for the experience of the sight and sound of the movie. Like I could care less about those other people. They just need to shut the hell up and let me watch.
You're one of those.
Yeah. Like
Yeah,
last thing I need is somebody talking on their cell phone,
I like someone talking on their cell phone, but I like being in the theater and other people having the same reaction.
Well, that's you guys. I don't care.
I know.
Look, you might get what just happened before, like dual releases. It's going to be released on HBO Max and in theaters.
Mhm.
Like I think you're going to get a bunch of that for those type of kind of cultish, fan following kind of like movie.
Yeah, I'm hoping more of that comes, because I would like more of an option to be able to go, oh, hey, I definitely want to get out. I want to be in that experience, and then go, shit, the budget really sucks this month.
Yeah.
But I don't want to be completely out of the loop.
I didn't even get into like rom-coms and stuff that became like a date experience. You and a significant other, you go out to dinner, and then maybe you're not going home that quick. Maybe the deal isn't sealed yet. You go to the movie theater and then you watch a good rom-com as part of the experience with other people in the same theater.
It's a date experience. You're not dating a whole movie theater.
Exactly.
The idea is to create intimacy. Like to me, the rom-com is the perfect thing for the setup that I'm talking about. I can make a dinner. I can make an intimate dinner in my home. Have a movie set up. Like
Right.
like
That's
can't
what
cook like
Netflix
you. We
and
all
chill
can't
is
cook
all
like you.
about, right?
But I'm just saying, like the rom-com, that was the totally wrongest example. Like that,
No,
That's the
no, I
perfect-
disagree.
No.
I disagree, because if it's like date number 2, date 1, 2, 3, or whatever, I'm not going to a dude's
No one's going to your
Like,
house
I'll
for
go to a
perfect dinner.
theater in public,
You're too
but I'm not
advanced at the
going to a
moment.
dude's house. Yeah.
okay, Debbie Do-Gooder. I'm just saying. I'm just saying it doesn't. I mean, it. Like he was. It's about the idea of presenting options. Okay, this is not your third. This is not your third date. This is date night now. We're a couple, and this is just date night.
Yeah.
That's.
I think what we've seen is the presentation of options that really weren't there before. You've got all of these, not only those options, but we've seen events that have been where now all of a sudden worldwide people can attend something that they otherwise couldn't. Sporting events, but those have always been on television. Concerts and that kind of thing, where they're trying. You can get more people out there to participate and still get some of that live crowd. It may or may not be as big. It probably certain things. A live concert will probably never be changed, but I think having those things stream live to people's homes, I think.
Yeah, that goes into Keith's favorite topic, which I agree on, is the VR experience. You can have an immersive experience in some form or fashion with the VR experience at a concert. Now, there's going to be some folks that's just they want human interaction and physical contact. But I think that's not going to be the majority of the people that you just want to experience the music. You want to feel like you're there, want to listen to your artist. You don't necessarily want to be jumping against somebody and having to walk a long line to pee. So I don't think the concert. Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think the concert's not going to go away, but it's going to be affected as well as everything else is going to be affected.
Do the things that you've
What
seen-
about?
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, West Coast.
I was gonna say, what about the actual theater? I was thinking about that this weekend for some reason. Like, what about? I'm not talking about the movie theater, but the actual theater. What is that
Broadway?
experience going to be like?
Ooh,
Broadway.
good
Well,
question.
the Hamilton got released on Disney Plus and was probably their largest single event of the new subscribers to the
Yeah.
service.
But that was a taped showing that had a live audience. Let's talk about moving forward. Actors, they need to interact with the audience in the stage. If there's no audience there and they're doing a stage play that gets recorded to be released on a Hulu or Disney, that might be a little bit different because
I think it would be better to get more of that, more taped. People want to be able to see that stuff, but it's so localized. I think a lot of these companies have believed that if you present a second viewing option, you're just going to lose people. Like, they'll never go to the basketball game if we play it on local television. That whole I know here the blackout rule. Yeah, the blackout rule for like the Bills is if they don't fill the stadium, they won't play it on local TV, which is ridiculous. That does not increase viewership in the stadium. That's not why they're not going to the stadium. And I think the same goes for, and hopefully they learn that, live things like theater and concerts and things like that. Yeah, maybe it's special. It's more special to be there for some people, but some people just can't be there. And I would like to see options, even paid options, as we've seen the technology for this stuff increase.
Look, yeah, VR is it's going to be another solution for that too.
Yeah, I want to see. I didn't try it once on a PS4, and man, it was a little funky playing with that big helmet on and feeling like you're going to fall over. Like my brother-in-law has this big brick fireplace and hearth, and I was like, I'm going to kill myself if I take a wrong step. But but like if I sat down on my couch and put that on, and I was like at a Metallica concert or something, I think that would be friggin' wild.
Yeah, I was looking forward to. So, Rage Against the Machine was supposed to come back this year.
Mm-hmm.
I was looking forward to that, and that got canceled.
But would you enjoy it with the VR experience? You said you don't like hanging out with people. Would you care?
Yeah, but see, it's the same thing about like going to the theater. I don't do it for the other people. I don't give a shit about them. Like, I'm going to see the band, right? That's the rest of you can shut the hell up.
Well, and it would be cool. Like maybe you had a volume where you could block out crowd noise and you just hear the concert, or you.
I would love the
full
VR
concert experience.
VR sports, VR, like make me feel like I'm sitting in the theater, the arena, the whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Have at it, as long as I have good sound and visuals.
All right.
Stuff.
So the next thing that was definitely affected by the virus and also created some of the dumbest events of the year was the election, and I'm going to send it off to Mike to talk about the the presidential election of 2020.
And
Go
How
ahead,
is a
Mike.
Canadian covering our American election?
Gotta love the irony.
We're keeping up with the whole switcheroo today.
Right.
where do I even start with this circus? Gosh. But
beginning.
you know what? Honestly, it wasn't as entertaining as 2016. I don't think, because of the pandemic or something. I don't know, or maybe just because, like in 2016, it was just funny watching a game show host beat out all these other Republicans to get the nomination. You know what I mean? And it wasn't as interesting on the Democratic side during the primaries. Like you knew it's either going to be Bernie or Biden, basically, right? So it wasn't that exciting.
Well, the difference there is that you cared about who won
Oh, exactly.
the Democratic one, whereas I think of the Republican one, you assumed it was just going to be.
Yeah, like finally when they called the election, the world breathed a sigh of relief, right? That Biden.
A momentary sigh of relief. Until
Yeah. So, like, I don't know what you want me to say. Like it's been such a, like Trump has just been ridiculous the whole year, like for the whole 4 years, basically, right? And even now, he's still asking people for money on two fronts. He's asking people for money to fight the election results, and he's sending out another email for people to send him money for his 2024
campaign.
Potential run.
Correct.
And 75% of those funds don't actually go to either of that. They go to a PAC that he can make himself an employee of and collect a salary and hire Tiffany and Ivanka and collect. Basically, the carnage, it just continues, right?
Yeah, he's been doing what he's always been doing.
And at this point, I don't feel sorry for people who give him money. Like, if you're stupid enough at this point to still keep giving him money, then that's on you.
Yeah, the betting markets were actually allowing people to bet that Trump would win up until the Supreme Court ruling.
Yeah. So what else can we say about the election? That
I think my question to you would be, do you think Corona really, how did it affect the election? And I think there's a couple of specific ways that it did.
Well, I mean, obviously, we've had the biggest turnout for mail-in absentee ballots that we've ever had, right? And that was a big problem for Trump, for one, because, that's where all his supposed fraud comes from, and all these ballots that turned up, 3 weeks later, mysteriously, I guess. I don't know. Yes, we. What's the we? I don't understand your question. I didn't give up my American citizenship when I moved to Canada, right?
Yes. It's just funny you're saying we being in Canada.
Yeah, because I voted.
Yeah.
I mailed in my ballot.
He's like Ted Cruz.
Yeah,
He mailed in all 4 of his ballots.
7 states, thank you very much.
Yeah, but I think I don't know, Mike, if you're done, but I was gonna say I think the election definitely was affected by the pandemic, because beyond just the mail-in ballots, I think people had more time at home, for those who were either quarantined or didn't have a job, to really focus on the get out and vote campaign and getting people interactive and caring about politics that during the 2016 cycle or even the 2018 midterm cycles people weren't really paying attention to. And we'll get into the next topic, which I think really was impacted by coronavirus, because people are watching, people are paying attention to stories and events and news, paying attention to the election, paying attention to who's running and their programs. Like, you can say, despite the fact that Trump had 72 million, Biden had 74 million, if you looked at down ballots, voting was up on those ballots too. In some cases, Republicans won a lot of those down ballots compared to the Democrats, depending on what region in the country. In general, people came out and voted like never before across all ballots, because where people are listening and they're reading, they're campaigning, they're involved, Whereas the last couple of years, people had jobs, people had other things happening, not distractions. They had, Avengers movies, they had like concerts and Coachella and getting high in public, all that good
Yeah,
stuff.
but so I agree with you there, but I'm also gonna add, we've had 4 years to prepare to get Trump out, right? Like,
Well, there's kind of a double-edged sword to this as well. Number
Mhm.
one, in Trump's favor with the pandemic was that there was less get out to vote this summer because
Right.
people were at home. The normal get out to vote, especially in democratic cities, and was really put on hold because people weren't going door to door like they might normally do.
yeah,
Unlike, Stacey Abrams was able to do it down in Georgia, but there wasn't as much of a push until late, right, for the get out to vote. Against Trump, the pandemic destroyed his biggest selling point, and that was the economy. And by basically completely wrecking the economy, even temporarily, it really killed his one thing he was going to probably talk about. Hey,
Yeah.
you hate me, but I make you money. And
Yeah.
so you got to wonder, if we didn't have the pandemic, if he would have won, right?
it's a toss up. I think we're
would've.
such a 50-50 country right now that you're looking at what, a difference of 10,000 people here or there, even though 7 million more people
Yeah,
voted
California
for
and
Biden.
New York, stand up.
Yeah, I mean,
But
somehow
the rest of Middle America, it was tight.
it's
Yeah, but
surprising.
70
and not
million motherfuckers
Yeah.
voted
Exactly.
for him.
right.
His
Mhm.
handling of the coronavirus was actually what pushed like a lot of those like older white votes
Yep.
against him, which they didn't care about Black Lives Matter. They didn't care about, like, you know what I'm saying? So like
Mhm.
had he just handled, he didn't even really have to do anything more than be like, yo, like, wear your mask. Listen to the scientists. He would have been the president right now.
Yeah,
Probably.
but he kept digging that hole for himself. Like, eventually he got to the point where even suburban white women were like, no thanks.
So he
right?
was a narcissist, and he was gonna stick
Yeah.
to
You could see it early on. Not only the whole Bob Woodward interview thing, which really bit him in the ass, but
Mm,
you could see it when he was like, "Oh, there's only one thing. It's a hoax. It's this or that." And then
Yeah.
because he said that was his first reaction, if the virus had been taken care of and it really never blew up, then he would have looked like one thing. But he cannot turn tail and go, "Oh shit, it's bad, people. Let's
Yeah,
take care of this."
oops, I made a mistake. You know, you
No,
never
he
hear those
never
words
makes
from his mouth.
mistakes.
His
Never.
his inability to admit a mistake basically turned around and became a monster that took him
Mhm.
out.
Yeah,
So yeah, politics was
Well, thank God for that, though.
right.
Yeah, I mean, as far as we know,
I mean, I won't say thank God for that, but
Well, I mean, yeah, you know what I mean. Like, if save that, the idiots in this country would have voted that dude back in.
yeah, but also think about it. If it happened in 2021 instead of 2020, it would be different in that he would be looking at 4 more years of presidency and 4 more years of mismanagement of the same virus, rather than, oh shit, it's been a horrible 10 months. At least we can look forward to somebody at top finally turning around and putting best effort forward to take care of this in the future.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a difference between when it happened. Maybe it happened, 3 years ago. Would he be president? I don't know, because his mishandling was the straw that broke some of the camel's backs. Some people were like, oh yeah, I guess he doesn't do very well at his job, even though the rest of us saw that immediately.
Did anybody vet that tweet by Wasserman that you sent today? That said that Trump lost by 65,000 votes.
Oh, it's basically if you count the different
Right, just like
votes
Hillary,
in
yeah.
Michigan, yeah.
But if that's true, that's pretty sad.
Yeah, that's it. That's our country right now.
But yeah, it's the swing states. If you look at the swing
1%
states,
here or there.
That's why the electoral college has got to go.
Gotta go. I agree. It's gotta go.
Well, someone also mentioned that if it wouldn't be as much electoral college problem if states were properly proportioned to
Oh yeah,
their
and the amount of electoral delegates they have hasn't
Mhm.
been updated since 1905. So a
Right.
state like California is
Should have
only
like
a handful
100,
more
right.
than like Missouri.
Right. It should have 100 ballots in
Yeah.
California, New York, and Texas.
Well, we just need to get rid of it. Be done with it. They've tried a few times. Last time was in the 60s, I think, was the
Right.
last time.
But the difference is changing the constitutional amendment versus
Right.
changing a single law from 1900s.
Yeah.
So you can change that law pretty easily as opposed to changing the
The
Constitution.
Constitution.
Right.
No, I get that. I get
Mhm.
that. Like,
Because then we wouldn't have these close things where you're like, hey, 7 million people is a lot of difference from one vote to the next,
hmm
right?
Can you imagine though if we hadn't amended the Constitution to say that the loser would be vice president?
Oh, I remember that. I mean, I
Yeah.
don't physically remember that, but yeah, I remember.
We
it
would
said
have some really weird combinations.
Oh my gosh!
But also what that would change would be because right now, whenever whoever wins gets the vice president goes down to the Senate and is the
President of the Senate, right?
president of the Senate. So all of a
Yeah.
sudden it'd be like Hillary is actually the president of the Senate.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and so-
opposing parties.
Yeah.
So now she is a vote, when it was like 51-49, and all of a sudden things start to change, look a little different when you switch that. So that's
Yeah,
an
so-
interesting rule.
Speaking of, like Han said to Luke when they escaped the Death Star, it's not over yet, kid. We still got Georgia runoffs in January.
That's true.
Yeah, it really does change what the next 4 years will look like, or 2
Mhm.
years. 2 years will look like whatever the Georgia runoffs can do. And they're right back to trying to make it hard for people to vote, shutting down polling places and the whole shebang.
Yeah.
It's not over. All
Well,
right.
We'll see what happens.
So
And frankly, sorry, one last point.
go for
January 20th. I hope he doesn't leave voluntarily.
it.
Oh,
I really hope so.
Yeah, pay-per-view.
Yep.
Pay-per-view, please. All right. So the last and certainly not the least of topics here tonight is Brooks is going.
Karening.
oh, come on, guys.
The
Come on.
Karen
Kidding.
pandemic.
Yeah, she knows
No,
I'm
no.
kidding.
Now we are going to talk. Brooksy's going to talk the Black Lives Matter movement for us, and bring us home, make us feel good about
Positive
ourselves.
Positive.
Right, because all good things happened, right? All good things.
Yeah, all good things. First, I just want to say that the Black Lives Matter movement did not start this summer by any stretch of the imagination. That was a movement that had been happening for a very long time. Even I was looking back at my Instagram, even I was hashtagging Black Lives Matter 4 years ago or whatever, so it's not a movement that started this summer. It is a movement that picked up steam this summer and became aware to white people, I would say, this summer. But I just want to start with that.
No, that's great information. I bet you there's a lot of people.
Yeah,
who
because
have no
remember,
idea.
Colin hasn't been playing football for how long, right?
Colin Kaepernick, exactly.
So,
Yep, that is very true. It did pick up steam this summer for 2 reasons. One big reason is what happened with George Floyd in Minnesota, where a cop was filmed putting his knee on George Floyd's neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, I believe it was. And that whole thing was filmed, and then obviously social media got a hold of it and it became a big thing. And I think because we were shut down in the middle of a pandemic, because the country at least was shut down, people actually had time to stop and watch and react to it. Because this is, again, not a new thing. The first big time I can remember police brutality being captured on camera was Rodney King in 1992 in LA. So, you know, if you do the math, at least, okay, I'm not doing the math. James, help me out here. It's been, you know,
28 years.
20 plus years
30
that
years.
this has been happening,
92,
right? 30
28.
years. Here we go. Whatever. That has been captured. That it's been captured on camera. That's what I'm trying to say. But like I said, because the world was kind of shut down, people had the ability to stop and pay attention to it. And I think that's what made the big difference. It, you know, it went from being like a thing where, and I'm not saying that it's still not this, but it went from being a thing where people just like really weren't paying attention a lot. Like people were like, Black Lives Matter, but all lives matter, you know? And again, I'm not saying that's not happening, but I think it felt like more people understood like how bad the situation is. More people became aware of like, oh, wow, police brutality against Black people may actually be a thing. And I just like saw a lot of awareness happen, specifically, obviously, among white people. I have a lot of white friends that were like, wow, that's bad. You know, like very much like I had no idea. And you're like, what do I do? What can I say? You know, a lot of people saying things like, I got to ask my Black friends, like, is this really bad? And I was like, don't do that. Like, that's not what you want to do. But, you know, it went from like, I think people really saying, Black people saying like, hey, this is a thing, like police brutality is a thing, to now white people being like, holy shit, it is a thing. And like, wait a minute, racism might actually be a thing. And like, wait, there's systematic racism. And like, it seemed to like, there just seemed to be this awakening that happened because of what happened with George Floyd. And again, I'm not saying like, you know, that everybody thinks that, or that all white people have had this awakening, but it seems like more people are aware that at least police brutality against Black people is a real thing on some level. And yeah, so
yeah,
that's my intro.
Yeah, and then that started all of the Black hashtags on social media, and then corporate companies like, we stand by
Right.
this. And I'm sitting around like, whoa, what the hell's going on now? Now this is like a fashion
and
thing.
that's exactly what I mean. It felt like, whether or not it was genuine or not, it felt like companies and corporations were getting behind things. I mean, the NBA did a lot. Even the NFL was doing things. You know, not a lot, but
capitalism
baseball,
took hold
right.
of the movement,
became
and said,
financial.
Exactly.
Well, you want to sell your movement. You want to get your movement to the widest audience possible. Capitalism is going to have to help you do it.
right.
Exactly.
But like the Floyd incident, though, that was the incident I think that popped off the summer of unrest, because
oh yeah, for sure.
In every other instance, and we have like millions of them, Philando Castile, we got that on tape. Oh, you gunned somebody down in their car, who has? But like, there's always some excuse.
Just last week.
Yep. The dude had a sandwich in his hand and was shot in the back of his.
And they lied and tried to say that they thought that that he was reaching for a gun. Like, but anyway.
Yeah.
But that's par for the course. But the idea that there was always like they could build some excuse, like, oh, there's some plausible like reason as to why. The George Floyd thing really shocked people because they couldn't place any excuses to it. You
right.
have full 8 minutes, almost 9 minutes of watching. Oh, the perfect
someone being murdered.
Perfect. It was like the perfect image to describe the angst or like the situation that we've been complaining about, that we've been yelling about, all boiled down into the image of one situation. And it was exactly what we're talking about. Like, get your knees off our necks.
Like figuratively and actually literally.
And we watch this man squeeze the life out of this other human being, and nobody couldn't say like, well, what happened before the video? Maybe he resisted.
Right.
Maybe he shouldn't have talked to the cop this way. Maybe the cop should not have had his, like, there was no way to excuse this particular event.
The dude casually had his hands in his pocket.
He had his hands in his pocket, the look on his face,
Staring
I
at the
feel-
camera.
I
Yeah.
could close my
Yeah.
eyes and see him, like that look on his face. Like,
Yeah.
this isn't even a movie, it's real life. And he's taking pleasure, and he's letting you know that I am the white man in charge of this situation right now, and I choose to take the life from this man.
Yeah. And
So
then
it's
immediately
what
have
white
no
America
consequences.
what white America needed was to see that image, like to have some image. It's sad that it needed to be all of this, but like they needed to have something that like they couldn't unexplain.
Right. Because there's always something like, oh, well, back 15 years ago, he had like a marijuana possession, so he could be a dangerous criminal.
Yeah, Candace Owens was going through this dude's whole jail record
Oh,
from
fuck
like
her.
15 years ago. And I'm like,
Oh,
yeah, but that had nothing to do with that day, that week, that month, that year.
And
Since then,
Yeah.
and then what the protests that followed that spread across the entire nation and into other nations. We saw some marches
Yep.
in Europe and whatnot. And you know, it was wild to see the streets fill like that so consistently everywhere. I mean,
Yeah.
it wasn't just like, you know, we saw a huge women's march this year. We saw a huge anti-Muslim ban march, a couple of those. We saw the anti-gun march, but those were like one-time, two-time events. This happened the entire summer, all over the place.
Over and
then,
over.
And then there was another incident and another incident.
and it
Obviously.
didn't stop. There was an incident where CNN, Jimenez, forget his name, African Hispanic anchor, who was caught on camera getting arrested while he was filming on the unrest and wherever it was, and his
Yeah.
white producer and cameraman were being ignored. They went straight to him with his press credentials, and I'm like, you can't make this stuff up. This is
Right.
like writing
And then-
itself.
And then there was constant video footage of the cops ramming cars into people, you know, knocking down old people for no reason, running into moms with arms linked, you know.
Punching the guy in Buffalo, not
Mhm.
walking past as he was
Yeah,
bleeding.
that's what I'm talking about.
Ali Velshi got shot in the knee, remember? With a
Mhm.
rubber bullet, and then Trump made fun of him.
Mhm. And then you have the whole Kyle Rittenhouse crap.
So of course, Trump used this, tried to use it to his advantage. talking
Yeah,
about
it's the
cities on
law and
fire,
order president.
yeah, right.
Well,
He's the law
the
and order.
unfortunate part right now is the question, the centrist Democrats saying that the later defund the
Defund,
police
yeah.
caused issues with down ballots, which I don't think there's really any science behind that, saying those
I
votes
think
didn't come
that
in.
actually needs to be looked at.
No, I
Me
think-
living in the suburbs, I think that's a quiet fear.
Yeah, I think that there's some probability there. Like that's not beyond the pale, because even me personally, like even as a liberal, you know, I feel like that messaging it's too
Flawed.
It was too incomplete. Like
Mhm.
and like we live in a world where marketing matters. Like I don't care what.
Yeah.
That you words matter and marketing matters. Like
Mhm.
we're in a situation right now because Trump marketed something. He marketed white supremacy.
It's
white
it's because it's
Yeah,
also because
such words. Like we gotta be able to use words better. Like because it's not really defunding the police, and that's
Right.
very easy to misinterpret. It's very
Obama said that and
Yeah.
got ridiculed.
Oh,
He
yeah.
got ate up. And it was like, he's not wrong.
He's
Also,
not.
I think of anybody, he knows politics more than the people that kind of ridiculed him. It's like, listen to your OGs.
Okay, I've
But
got
that's
I've got a name for you, Claudette Colvin. You guys know Claudette Colvin. This is an old name. So before Rosa Parks didn't give up her seat on the
Right.
bus,
Yeah.
Claudette Colvin didn't give up her seat on the bus.
Oh my
because
God.
she was a single
History.
mom in
Mhm.
a time when it wasn't allowed to be a single mom. So the movement
The
decided that
nurse. Yeah.
Rosa Parks was a better spokesperson for this event,
She
and
was also a
basically,
teenager too. Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
planned her to then take the lead as the face of that movement. That's a marketing decision,
That is.
Right.
and so
A teenage unwed mother versus an older black lady who's
And
an
you got to
upstanding
understand
citizen.
these things because you're trying to get hearts and minds. So
Right.
But what people are mad at Barack for is like, oh, we gotta stop being scared to use words like this. Like, nah. Yes,
But people don't understand what it means.
and well, I think this
You-
is where
It's not that though. It's the GOP has a good way of twisting the
yes,
narrative.
it's easily twistable.
They easily
Exactly.
Yeah.
well, it's not even that much twisting for them because they use the same terminology to fund Planned Parenthood, and they want to get
Right.
rid of. They don't want it. They don't want to keep it. They don't want to have less money. They want it gone. So
right.
they're using that terminology in a different way than I think other people were using the terminology.
Yeah.
And it's the
Yeah, you ever hear how they want to cut big government spending, but then the biggest government spending is the military, and every
Uh-huh.
GOP is always talking about expand the military, more ships, more
Mhm.
planes.
yeah, they don't really
Well,
remember.
yeah,
don't really
they're also
wanna
supposed to be the
cut big
party of.
government spending.
They're also supposed to be the party of debt reduction, right?
Yeah.
They never do that.
Yeah. So, can I give you just a like a view from up here with the whole Black Lives Matter thing?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Now you're Canadian. Got it.
I didn't say
Only when it
me.
matters.
I didn't say
He's like
me.
Canadian, West Indian American.
Yeah. No. I'm going to give you the perspective of some of the people up here because, for the most part, the liberals up here get it. They understand the movement. They're with the movement. We've had protests in Toronto, in the major cities.
Yeah, Trudeau looks really good like that.
The difference is the conservatives up here, like a lot of conservatives this year I've talked to, and they go, well, all lives matter. They don't do it because they're racist. They do it because what's happening in the States doesn't really happen here. So they don't understand the racism that goes on and the systemic racism from the police departments. You get what I'm saying?
Well,
They don't really understand how people could be treated that way. So it doesn't occur to them that it happens.
except unfortunately, and this also happens here outside of the Black Lives Matter. They do that against the indigenous populations.
Mm-hmm.
They treat them like second-class citizens.
Oh yeah, they do that up
You know,
here. It's
You're right,
horrible,
exactly. That's also a place where that kind of, othering happens by authority.
Right, but yeah. So my point is though, like, it's not coming from up here. The people who aren't necessarily, they're not against the movement. They just don't understand. They don't understand it because they can't really understand how that happens because it doesn't occur as much up here. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah, it does. Something I've noticed, being in the suburbs last 5 years is, there's been as West Coast said, an awakening, Force Awakens, whatnot. But I think most of that awakening has been happening in large cities. Not all liberal, but the larger cities.
Mhm.
Whereas in the suburbs and rural areas, they're not. When you say defund the police, they say it's a bad apple here and there, because they're not, in their minds, they're not seeing it happen in a local community. They're seeing it in like Detroit,
Mhm.
Atlanta,
They're
New
seeing it
York,
on the news.
LA.
Right.
Yeah.
They're seeing these large, these large cities, and they're like, that's not us. That's not, Plainsfield, Illinois.
Yeah.
No, these police are outstanding. I've known little Larry since I used to babysit him. He's not racist.
Yeah.
Not knowing what the hell little Larry's doing when he goes out, in next town over Metropolis. But the
Mhm.
point is, that awakening didn't happen across the entire country. I think
Right.
it happened in certain large cities and some liberal pockets. So going back to the point about the defund the police, when you start saying that stuff, they've got their blue lives matter, all that stuff in their mind. And I'm not speaking to everyone here. They don't see it as like a a racist or us versus them. They're seeing like, no, these are our people. This is my cousin who's a cop or a firefighter.
Yeah.
His
Right.
life should matter also with black people or whatnot. So the message gets confused because it becomes so polarized because of the marketing and sometimes on purpose by the opposing team, that you've got these people in the middle that are ignorant. Let's just say they're ignorant in the entire issue.
Mhm.
So they're like, no, I don't believe my best friend who's a cop is racist, and I don't think all cops. I think it's a certain bad apples. It's absurd, and we should
Right.
police them, not the entire police force of America, because they're not seeing the big picture from their little isolated communities because they're not experiencing it nowhere near as much
But-
as is happening in the bigger cities.
I agree. I 100% agree with that. I just will say, like, everywhere I go, I see like Black Lives Matter, and I never saw that before. Like, big corporations are getting behind it. And I'm not saying they're getting behind it because they think it's the right thing to do. I think they're doing it for marketing reasons, because I think at the end of the day, like, the dollar, is king in America. But I personally have just never seen like that kind of, like, even if we call it marketing, like, I've just never seen that, right? It was like, certain even streaming services came out and said, hey, we fucked up by not saying Black Lives Matter. Sorry. Like, it was a very big, push to say, like, hey, Black Lives Matter. Like, it was almost like people had to capitalize on the moment. And a lot of companies said, we're going to make strategic decisions. Again, whether they did or not, whether this is just lip service or not, I don't know. But a lot of companies came out and said, we need to make more strategic decisions based on, like, Black Lives Matter, and saying, like, we are going to, right, we're going to make X amount of board members Black, or we're going to donate X amount of money, or whatever the case. Like, a lot more corporations came out and said that this summer than like ever before.
And I think the biggest problem so far is that they're choosing Biden as the Democratic candidate. He is not a spokesperson for a lot of this stuff. He'll go along with it. He believes some of it. He'll talk well about it to an extent, but he is not a leader on the front lines of these kind of movements. He's a go with the flow guy,
Well, think about the talking points they bring up when you talk about Biden. You go crime bill, right?
Right. I mean, his
and-
history as well, but it's
Even with Kamala, you go, oh, how many black people did she lock up as AG in California,
so
right?
I don't think there is, outside of Obama, a great front man, a great front person, spokesperson at a national political level. Like, there's no Stacey Abrams isn't up on that stage yet, something like that.
I think Sean King would like to think he is on that level.
Yeah. There's a lot of people who like to think.
Cory Booker and all those guys.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't feel like anybody was national politically taking those reins
AOC,
and taking control.
Mm.
Right.
the up and comers.
We'll see. I mean, 2024? Is it time to
What
place your
about-
bets?
I'm telling
No.
you, like you just said, Brooks, that there's a proliferation of these signs and all that stuff. I feel like in 2022, 2023, they're going to be scaled back. Like, I remember when Obama became president, people were like, racism is over. Oh, not us. People were like, yeah,
Right.
look, we
No.
proved we've beaten racism.
People even still
yeah,
say that.
it's
People
supposed to be
use that to this
post-racial.
day.
We're supposed to be
Right.
post-racial.
We're post-racial.
Yeah. And then now we're just so post-racial, we're over woke and this and that. 4 years from now, it's like, I'm like, remember that crazy summer we started hashtagging Black Lives Matter? Remember that? Yeah, okay. That's what I feel like.
But it started, but like she was saying though, that started before the summer. Like the summer is when this particular summer is when it reached critical mass.
Right. It became like mainstream this summer, but
I was out in marches. It was more white people out there than black people.
Mm.
It was white people fighting other white people.
Yeah.
I was thoroughly pleased by.
yeah.
But to me, that's
I mean-
change. Like
Yeah.
that's what is. Those are the things to me that, because we're 13% of a population.
Right.
Our movement can't move. Our movement can't move unless we move some of them.
Mm.
Right.
And not just some, it got to be a majority of them.
Gotta be a majority, and they gotta
For
stay
our
involved.
13 to solve a problem that affects just our little 13%.
Yeah. But Keith, they have to stay involved and not just make it a trend. Like, this is a movement I'm fighting now. Last year I
Right.
was fighting LGBTQ
Well,
and equal rights. This year I'm fighting Black Lives Matter. Next year I'm gonna fighting legalized drugs. The year after that I'm gonna be fighting. It's gonna be a
And that's
No,
why you
look,
need
yeah.
that's why you need a leader to,
You need a leader.
focus the
Well,
powers at
and you take advantage of the time and the opportunity, because I feel like, cool, get policy out of this time, get people in place during this time politically, and this, that, and the other.
I agree.
I don't need you to be behind me forever. Just like, okay, you feeling malleable right now, you're feeling nice, like, okay, cool, give me this policy. Here's this policy we want. Here's another policy
Right.
we want, and we want this person in place, and we want these people in place, and we want that people in place. That's it. Like this, I don't need you to be. I don't need to be behind no movement forever. I don't want this movement to be. I don't have to be moving no movement for fucking ever.
Make change.
Right. I agree.
Hey.
Yeah, it's like at some point we can't march anymore. We got to do something. I mean, I don't want to sound like Jay-Z, but like I think it's important to march. I think it's
That's
important to
perfect.
bring awareness. I think it's important to like have an outlet for anger and all of those things. But like I agree, we have to like move
Yeah.
forward
and-
at some point.
And the thing is,
only so much marching you're gonna be able to do.
right, and Biden and Harris campaign on, we're going to make fundamental change. Okay, so we need to hold them accountable for it.
But here's the thing.
Cross
and
the fingers.
Yeah.
Here's the fucked up thing in that whole, like, that really rests on these two elections in Georgia.
Yeah.
Now, here's what happens. Like, very likely, the Republicans, or we might get one of those two,
I get a split,
Right.
yeah.
or none of them.
Mhm.
Either way, because really one or none. Like, we got to get both of them. It's both of them or whatever.
Yeah.
So like we only get one or we get none. Fuck what Biden and
Harris
want to do.
Yeah, you end up kind of with this.
We back at square one, and then we're gonna end up just pointing the finger and blaming them and being like, see, Democrats can't get nothing done, can't get it done, da 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 da. Like, not realizing like, yo, like this it's all a setup.
Yeah. Then
We also need to get the younger generation that are all involved in these Black Lives Matter movements. They need to get involved in politics too. And
So the
and
one
not-
positive I'm going to say about that,
yeah,
though,
at
is
the
that-
local levels, at the state, at the city and municipality, need to get
I
involved.
think people need to
at those
understand how
levels.
important it is at the local level. Like I
Honestly,
never understood
local.
that. I honestly never did.
I'm gonna say I wasn't a big proponent of it either. Like it
Right.
I think these last two elections, or I should say from Obama's election, and like realizing what not giving him the Senate, not ensuring him
Exactly.
the Senate, actually, I didn't realize like how much that really would play into not being able to get anything done.
Well, and unfortunately, this year was a year for gerrymandering to hell because it was a census year, and if we lost, the Democrats did not win a lot of local.
Shit, we lost congressional seats, although we still kept the majority.
So that does not make it easier going forward. It makes it harder.
Yeah, like
going
this young
forward.
generation that's so empowered and engaged. Get involved in your local politics. Start
Well,
there.
I think we're seeing something there though.
I think this generation is going to be
Yeah.
more into it than our
Yes.
generation was when
Yeah.
we were the same age.
You guys are very positive, man.
Read the energy coming from like Serena and her people.
Mhm.
I'm telling
You
you,
know,
like,
you know why they will be? Because
like they
when-
know they're a little bit more in tune. Like they're getting
Yeah.
more information like casually than we got.
True.
Yeah, because the difference is when we were that age, it was basically two boring old white men doing things that didn't really affect us directly.
or that we didn't think of affected
Right.
us.
Yeah, we didn't see. Also, we didn't see the good role models. We didn't have
Yeah.
people that were. We had the Jesse Jacksons, and we were like, man, that's I'm never. That's that's whatever. It's a
Yo, I
onesie,
would have voted
twosies.
for Jesse.
So
All right.
Yep.
So that, ladies and gentlemen, is our 2020 part 1 culture cast review. Tristan, you're gonna have to run that again. I had to pause it. Sorry,
Oh,
guys.
laundry.
What?
Laundry.
Dryers.
I was like, what am I running again?
We're
What?
in the
Yeah.
middle of a podcast,
And
guys.
he stopped his
So-
laundry. His
Yeah.
clothes are damped.
We're closing down. So next we are going to do an all entertainment. So you're all gonna have to figure out what you watched this year.
Are we doing a TV episode and a movie episode, or we're just doing
I
one?
just TV and movie
Okay.
in one episode, but we're not splitting the TV. The type of it's all streaming.
Yeah, what we did
whatever.
last time. Yeah,
what's
Yeah,
all
no. I don't
too
want
much.
to. That takes too long. And like, just pick your shows that you like this year.
Yeah, we're just gonna
Brooks,
talk
are you
about
picking
the
Bachelorette? No,
we're gonna pick
Because,
our
I've
you know,
never watched
honestly,
Bachelorette,
for
please.
me,
that was a
it's-
joke. I know you haven't.
For me, like all the TV and movies are all streaming, right? So
That's right.
none of it's. I don't
No.
watch broadcast TV. So
I went to go see
Rock.
Birds. I went to go see Birds of Prey in the theater in early February.
yeah, I did too.
Thing I did.
Oh, I saw Bloodshot before the pandemic. The
That
week
was
of
my
the
last
pandemic.
movie.
Wait, you went to the theater to see Bloodshot?
That was
Oh,
the
that's
week of the
right.
pandemic.
I
Yeah.
went, I went with James and his family.
Oh
Yeah.
man.
And then 3
That
days
was the last
later,
movie I saw.
everything shut
I
down.
don't- God, what was the last movie I saw in the theater? I don't even remember.
And then Tenet.
I'll have to look
We
that
all know
up
that.
because
All
I
right.
didn't go to the theater this year. I
About
know
to be
that.
Wonder Woman next week.
Yeah, Wonder Woman.
Damn,
So-
next week already. Holy
Yeah,
cow.
next week is Christmas.
So literally DC will have won the theater over Marvel this year because Marvel didn't release anything.
Wow, congratulations.
Yeah.
All right, guys. I want to
Okay,
thank
so-
everybody for joining me. Mike, go for it.
Yep. Just want to say, don't forget to follow us on social media at Heroes Peak, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Don't forget to share our
What?
content. Let people know we're out there.
Smash that like button.
Yeah.
Smash that like button. Smash it. Smash it.
Hey, and hit the bell at the top too for the notification, so you know when we release our new content. We're trying to release at least 1 or 2 videos a week. So
Get that content, son.
Good to know.
Good to know you're part of it, West Coast. You're not the audience.
yeah. So yeah, you can't call yourself a New Yorker anymore. So
Hold up. I never called myself a New Yorker. All right, let's get that
I
straight.
call myself a New Yorker, which I was proud of for that at least.
At
West
least.
Coast all day.
oh, all right.
Go back.
all right, everybody. Thanks. You have a good night,
Good
and
night, everybody.
we'll see you later.
All right.
Later.
Bye.